Welcome to Expat American. I am the Expat American, walking in Moscow, Russia, in the snow. And in this episode, the Russian border is closed. And we're going to be going on location from Russia to Finland and Estonia and talking to Igor, a Soviet man who does business across the border, and find out what this means for him and explore what it means for regular people like you who are trying to live their normal lives. What would it be like if your freedom of movement was stopped? If you couldn't see your family members and make the money you need to make to survive?
So, guys, thank you for tuning in. I'm with Igor in Russia. You have seen him before on my channel, and I wanted to have him on because I've been hearing in the news borders are closing with Russia, and that, of course, concerns me because I live in Russia. So, Igor, tell us, those who don't know, who are you and where are you and what's going on?
What's up, guys? Great to be here. And I'm Igor in Russia. I'm a foreigner traveling to Russia and basically feeling like I'm at home, but not actually home when I'm in Russia, even though it might feel like it. So I'm traveling from abroad, from Finland. And I film Russian daily life, people, locations, especially St. Petersburg, but I've been expanding to Moscow finally last summer and other places. And I have maybe interesting stuff to tell you about this border crossing, because the same border crossing that I use from Finland or nearby is very common amongst Americans and Europeans as well. It's one of the most favorite places to enter Russia from.
So where exactly are you standing right now?
Right now, I'm stuck in Finland. So this is Helsinki border area. I live at the border of St. Petersburg in Russia, where I have an apartment. And also I live on the border of Helsinki. So that's a quite funny thing. But this is Helsinki, guys. And this is Gulf of Finland behind me. And just like 60 miles from here, or 80, is like Tallinn. But if we go to the sea and to the left from this, watching from here, that'll be St. Petersburg.
Wow.
That's what I usually.
Looks beautiful. So is that a frozen body of water behind you?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Wow.
Spread so it's not like open.
Snowy Moscow suburbs behind me.
Well, I would change that any given time personally.
You're very kind. All right, so what exactly is going on? So Finland exactly has closed the border with Russia. Is that right?
Yes. So the topic is, of course, very, very political. But is it the correct word? Layman's terms?
Layman's.
No, layman's
terms.
I thought it's like lame.
I'm not sure how to spell that, but it's layman's.
Okay. So basically, yes, Finland. First, it's there's basically, especially two, but basically four, the most popular border crossings, and they're all in the south, well, southeast. But I mean, the most southern border crossings are the most popular ones, understandably, because that's the shortest way to the St. Petersburg. And from St. Petersburg, people who want continue to Moscow. So they closed down first the four, and then they closed all but one, the most northern part. And we can go into details why they did that in a bit. And now all of the border crossings are closed from Finland. And if I can continue, the reason is, and of course, there's two different stories told in Russia and then in Finland or Europe. Once again, it's very popular. Well, this is how it's been working on lately. So basically, there's two truths. Well, I don't know, two sides of it basically. But Russia is being accused of like hybrid warfare, meaning bringing people to the border and letting them cross without proper papers. And I'm not sure legality of it, because before that, Russia cut off their border agreement with Finland. I'm not like a political guy, so I know this much, but I don't know exactly what it means. Is it the result of it or not? I don't know. Because of the basically hostilities and political level, they cut off the border. Some people say that Finland hasn't been upholding the contract anyways before that. That's why Russia did it. I don't know what's the truth. But after that, or as a result of that, Russia started to pushing people to the border and letting them cross and trying to maybe create something. I don't know. When the 4 crossings were stopped from working, they basically just these immigrants starting to move northwards, and even in the south, in the most northest border crossing, even there were a lot of immigrants. And there's, of course, if you have seen, they've been crossing on bicycles, like child's bicycle, because you cannot cross it as a pedestrian, these borders. So you have to have a bike, basically. And kids'
Why is
bike.
that? I don't understand. Why is a bike better than feet?
Yeah, because you cannot cross the border officially by walking. I think it's the Finnish side or Russian side or both. I don't know. And
So it gets them across quicker and quietly.
I don't think it's quicker. Basically, it's the legal thing that you have to have a vehicle, and a kid's bicycle is basically a vehicle. Yeah. It's
interesting.
True.
Okay,
Yeah.
So they're getting around the law. Well, whatever the reason, the important thing I think is, because I'm a regular guy with family and friends living my life, and I think about the fact that these are people that live in Russia, that live in Finland, that live in these other countries, in these surrounding areas, and they have business across the border, obviously, because they live so close. And so what is happening is you're making life incredibly inconvenient for these people, if not heartbreaking, around the holidays. Because I have 3 adult kids. My adult daughter could have easily married a Finnish guy at her university and been living over there by now. And then what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to not see each other?
Yeah,
are we supposed to quadruple our travel cost and time to get to each other? Are we going to then decide not to see each other?
Exactly.
So it sounds to me, and I haven't investigated it fully, maybe you know better, like politicians messing with people's lives.
Yeah, there's this aspect as well. Like I said, I don't know exactly the political background, but I know the feeling that a lot of people, basically because of the current events with Russia, Ukraine, they've been steadily making it more inconvenient and harder for Russians to travel to Finland, well, to Schengen area in general, but then to Finland as well, because it's one of the outer borders of the EU. That's what I'm like mostly. This is my take as well, that people that having families, or there's 80,000 Russian speakers or with a Russian background. They are mostly Finnish people as well. They're Russian Finnish, but they're Finnish citizens. So, and like me, for example, my rights have been violated because I cannot travel to where I want to. In this case, it's St. Petersburg, whatever the reason. For me, it's like emotional thing. But you might be asking about this, but there's been like protest as well, quite small scale, but still there's been protest, people with the Russian background who are feeling bad about this decision because they cannot travel for family ties reasons. Or there's a lot of pensioners who have to, because there's no banking systems anymore. They also cut due to these events in the world. So people have to have business in Russia. It's pensions, family, babushkas, wives and husbands across the border. So right now you cannot cross, which is anyways quite hard right now. It used to we used to have trains Allegro trains between Russia and Finland. It was 3.5 hours from Helsinki to St. Petersburg. And once the pandemic started, there was no traffic, then a little bit of traffic. And now there's been more restrictions on between the border crossings for Russians especially. So they cannot enter as a tourist to Russia at all.
Mm-hmm.
So the buses are full and they travel anyways. It's like 7 to max. My new record was like, I think it was 11 hours by bus.
Wow.
But but basically like 7-8 hours. But right now there's no buses and no, you cannot pass.
Yeah, so what I think is most important for people to understand about this story, because for over 45 years, I lived in the bubble of America, of the West, where you are protected behind the U.S. military. And nothing happens to you in terms of global international incidences. You know, the weather is stable, if you know what I mean. And you hear stories in the news your whole life of this battle here, this problem here, this sanction there, you know, this thing that maybe it was a genocide, maybe it wasn't over there. And you just think, oh, well, that's just some unknown place, some poor place, some place that is not important that I don't know about. I'm here living in civilized place with families where everything's normal. It always has been and always will be. But you don't think, you know what, that news story, which is to me is just a news story, people live there. Families live there. People are dying. People are suffering. You know, there are people there that are just like you. If, let's say, you're living a comfortable life in the West.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. In these politicized times, it feels like people don't care about, especially this minority group, those who have relatives or whatever reasons. Well, let's say relatives who have relatives in Russia. It feels like it's so over politicized that people actually just say, well, it's their own fault. You know, always bringing this political problem on the world scale to this matter when it shouldn't, because. But then again, it's been quite. I have seen during the almost 2 years how it's been like this conflict has been more and more people been taking or involving like separate people into the equation, meaning that the ordinary people having Russian background or whatever are somehow one of the fault. You know, that they have to be punished, you know, and this is fine with it. But then again, I have to say that many people talk only about that this has been a case of national safety. National safety is the issue, and that's why the borders have to be closed, no matter what your rights are. And of course, this issue, because most of Finnish people don't travel to Russia anyways, even if everything would be fine before 2022. So basically, this doesn't concern a lot of people. So that's why they're just basically applauding this decision. And people who have been protesting against this for like 4 weeks or 3 weeks in a row, once a week on Saturdays, they claim is that, hey, this is not political for us. It's about like family ties. We want to see our family, and people unfortunately don't. I think most of the people just don't care because they are Russians, or you know. And the Russian news been also covering this, and they speak about, of course, maybe too much underlining how Finnish they are, and not mentioning that these are Finnish Russians. But then again, I have to somehow maybe side with them in this case, because people are, if you're Finnish citizen, you don't need to be labeled, you know, like segmented. But like you have rights. But then again, if you're Russian Finnish, you have less rights, and you know, and this and that. So you know, all the political things aside, it's about like daily lives of people, and unfortunately, it has been influencing a lot of people.
Right. If you're not living an international life, you know, it's not going to concern you, right?
Yeah.
So if your life doesn't cross the border, I mean, it might concern you. You might want to care, but you're also busy paying your mortgage and paying your rent and feeding your kids. So it is just a story, and you've got to move on. But so it's not fully closed. So some people are able to come around, but it's just making people's lives that much harder. Is that the case?
No, Finnish border is closed. All of the border crossings
Completely closed.
Yes, completely. So the 1,000-something kilometers, because the only one that was last open was the most northern. It's on the, I think, really close to Norway, Russia, Finland, the most northern part. So if you want to travel, you have to go like 1,000+ kilometers the wrong way before going back. It's like a 23-hour trip. But now, not even that is the option. So now what I did actually to prove a point, or maybe just to experience it, I went through the nearest border, which is still open, is the Estonian-Russian border at Narva, Ivangorod. So what I did, and I filmed the entire video about it, and maybe you can also link it in your description if people want to see the whole adventure basically. So if you're coming from Helsinki, which is basically the biggest local international airport, if you're coming from a long way like States, if you're not traveling to Turkey, you have to Helsinki is the best. But if you come to Helsinki, you do what I did. You have to go by ferry to Tallinn. From Tallinn, you go to the bus station, you choose a bus, and you travel via the only good border crossing at Narva, which is also a pedestrian border. So what I did is I actually traveled to Narva and I crossed the border by walking to Ivangorod, which is a small town of 10,000 people. Your building in Moscow has more people than in Ivangorod, probably 10,000. And St. Petersburg, an average building might have 5 to 10,000 easily. But anyway, to Ivangorod, and you can actually take also a small marsrutka. You know, marshutkas, like small minibuses. You can take a minibus to St. Petersburg for like $5. But I didn't. So I traveled only from Helsinki, Tallinn, Narva to Ivangorod. Then I also visited the nearest city, Kingisepp, and I actually had to go back all the way to St. Petersburg, depending on the border issues. It's going to take you maybe, plus 10 hours. There's a huge risk that this border will be also closed because Estonians and actually I think Latvians as well, they say we're going to close all the borders as well as soon as there's even a small reason to.
So the only way right now is to travel through another country.
Yeah,
right?
From Helsinki, yes.
Okay. And of course, that's for now. The other country may also decide to close their borders, right?
Exactly. And there's been they've been basically, I think it's, if there's any, depending on these immigrants, once again, if there's any sign of these immigrants, which I referred as illegal immigrants because they have not correct papers to enter, I don't know. So if there's any sign of them, I think Estonia will be haste to close it in a matter of maybe even hours. And Estonians, of course, they don't want people even to travel to Russia. And, governments like UK, Finland, they all been saying a long time that do not travel to Russia. It's unsafe and all that BS. Mm-hmm. But so they're referring to that. We say you shouldn't be traveling anyways. Shouldn't, who are you to say where can and cannot travel? But anyways, they're been saying they're going to close it if there's even a small reason to. So then again, I don't know what to do.
So their excuse is national safety. If you wanted to try to understand them and be sympathetic, is there a way you could even argue this point?
Yeah, exactly. And I think nobody's actually arguing this point. And for example, in the protest, people been saying that you have to think about come up with another solution because, and I agree with that because I know that during these times, once again, if there's a political will, you will always find a way. For example, in order to close this border, they had to go. I think they have to go back a few years ago because they were basically preparing for this kind of event. So they made adjustments to the legal system, and they made some laws that you can actually close down the border. Because I have as a citizen, I have right of movement from anywhere, and now it's been denied, and it's been denied because of the new law or something like that. So if they want, they could come up with some probably quite innovative ways to not let these illegals in if they would like to. But I think in some ways maybe the Russian-speaking Russian people, or those who want to even look at the East, they somehow, become in some ways second-class citizens. In some ways, don't take it literally. Mm-hmm. So I think this is like a little bit also political, even though I'm not denying this also. I think it's a correct thing not to let these in, because you have 900 got in before they closed down. So it could have been in thousands. All right. But if you want to, you could have denied their entrance, or maybe make it more harder for them to enter,
Right. Well, if you are a person who is not for this and you think this is wrong, I mean, of course, obey the law, but you should not be quiet about this. You should not lie down about this, because this is a big deal. And I find it very interesting, because people that would close the border and say, well, it's safety issues, and separate families and ruin livelihoods, these perhaps could be the same people, because this is coming from, let's say, the West. In the West, from what I've been hearing over the years, you have to have safe spaces for people. You know, if a boy bullies another boy at school, he might be socially canceled in front of the whole world. If someone feels like they are physically something they are not, we all have to agree with what they say. Otherwise, they're going to get in trouble. So the West has been creating for years now a world where you must be very, very careful. You don't ever offend anyone in the slightest bit. But yet when it comes to something like this, they'll shut the border, they'll ruin lives. So what that tells me is, unless I'm misunderstanding something, it's all an excuse. They don't really care about people's lives. What they care about is their agenda and what they want to get done. And if they want something to happen, they'll tell everyone, you better be very nice, you better be quiet, or you're going to get in trouble. If they want something to happen on the other side, they'll ruin lives, and they'll say, well, it's for national safety or whatever.
And I think this minority group politically, on political scale, is not like important, meaning that you don't have to be afraid. You don't need to worry about possibly offending, Russian Finnish people, Finnish citizens having Russian background, because of the situation, this minority group basically is very quiet if you have any views on the border, for example, except the protest. But still, I think many people agree, and some people note, some Russian Finnish people also agree with the border closing. People who attended the protest say that you have to come up with another solution, more flexible, because right now it's like a hard no to anybody. And but basically politicians and all the parties, I think basically everybody applauded this decision, and nobody has brought up this issue that, there's people that need to move there.
Mm-hmm. Are they closing the border with other countries, or this is Finland closing the border to Russia, right?
Yes, only to Russia.
Okay, well, so, that wouldn't make sense to me either. Maybe I'm missing something.
But something I don't understand, I believe, if this would be the case, let's say with a dear friend of Finland's Swedish border, if they would close down that, and if people would have much more, and even majority would start to actually get influenced by the border crossing, by the border closure, how would the government act then? I don't know. It would be interesting to have this kind of a reference also. But right now, it's, of course, anything anti-Russian, despite whose fault is it, Russia's or not, it's popular to do everything that it's against, that cuts ties with Russia.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But then again, notice that this is something that everybody's always reminding that, hey, this is not Finland's fault. But I get it. That's why I say, is there any other ways to do it if there's a political will? But there's no will right now.
Is this temporary?
Good question, because right now, the official date, and that's why we have to release this video, we have to edit this out, that's why we have to release this video beforehand, is that the date when the government is going to be checking out the situation is 12th, and they might open it on 14th. But the government doesn't want to unless if there's legally any ways to continue it, my understanding is that they want to continue the closure, and I was suspecting that even before that, but I read about it just now. So 14th, it might open on 14th, or the first borders were closed until 22nd of December.
Right.
But once again, I think if there's any possibility to continue, unfortunately, I'm afraid that they will continue. It's just too popular thing to keep it closed. You get also political points for that, among certain people's minds.
Right.
So if Baltic states close and Finland keeps it closed, there's only way to travel is like there are a few countries you can travel. I think like from Turkey, and maybe I don't know, maybe I'm not Poland actually, not sure.
Well, yeah, Turkey is definitely open. I know this from other people that are immigrating. It's easy, but of course, it may be very out of a person's way. And I can only imagine if you're living right on the border and you have to take a plane to somewhere else in Western Europe, and then another plane to Turkey, and then another plane into Russia.
The tickets are
ridiculous, and you're not going to do that, right? I mean, because I came here to Russia 8 days before the special military operation with my family. And I mean, I'm not stupid. I was concerned. Is this a problem? Did I make a mistake? If it was easy for me to pack up and go right back to America, I would have considered it. But I did not, because I had already put so much in motion. It would have financially messed me up badly to move back. And that's what people also don't understand when they hear news stories and they think, well, someone should just move, or these people should just move, or these families should just move. Just moving, though, might wipe you out, might ruin you financially. And you cannot just say just move, because there's a cost of living thing that you have to consider when you're going to live somewhere. And a lot of times people stick it out in situations that to us look bad, because they have to feed their children. And starting over when you're 49, let's say, is not necessarily an option.
Yeah, tickets are not are expensive. The cheapest like 200, 250 from Helsinki to Turkey to Istanbul. Then you have to continue to Moscow. And if you're going to go back, that would be an adventure. But, even me who wants to travel to Russia for personal reasons, especially imagine like a pensioner who needs to do some business because the bank's systems are now separated. So if you have to have some money from Russia, from your Russian pension, then you have to use like, I don't know, 800 euros, let's say, just to travel to Moscow. Wow. Or just to see your grandmother, or take care of your, parents. There's a lot of those issues as well. Very unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm passionate about it, obviously, because I live in Russia and the world has been changing, and I'm an American, and I've got kids here. And also, I crossed the border into Estonia, the same border that you crossed in your video. And I had an incident where one of my children, their American passport was expired, and I've shared the story before. And so my wife had to not cross. And she was stuck with him. And then because I had to leave for my visa, I had to go with our baby alone into Estonia. And I even forgot my baby's paperwork. My wife had it. So there was this panic and this stress of the family being separated. So I have felt it, if only for a moment. And what I wanted to ask you, because I saw in your video, you crossed on foot. Why did you cross on foot?
Well, I knew I didn't have time enough to go to I could have gone just to St. Petersburg and right back. And as you know, I also want to explore Russia. I want to see Russia, and I'd never been to Ivangorod before. So I had the chance to do this. I wanted to document this whole thing and help people out, those who need to travel to Russia. I'm going to tell them in my video, like face by face, where you buy the tickets, where's the terminal, where's the bus station in Tallinn, and all this stuff. And then I wanted to actually experience this Ivangorod Narva trip. Plus, I wanted also to see Narva, which is the most Russian city in Estonia. And so I have these points. And I was able to go to Kingisepp, which is basically same-sized city near Ivangorod on Russian side, as big as Narva.
Okay, so it's just a convenience issue for you.
Yeah, but it was crazy. I did it in 42 hours. I had to come back 42 hours, three countries, 5 cities, 9 checkpoints, 50,000 steps.
Wow.
It's crazy. Yeah.
And what else I thought was cool about that border crossing, maybe you know, I don't know, but I noticed there appear to be 2 defensive ancient historic castles on both sides. And I can only imagine, because those things are not cheap and they're not easy to build. So there was a time long ago when you had to protect the border like this. It was like actual knights and whatnot, and a castle on one side of the river and a castle on the other. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know much of it. I just know it's the Ivangorod fortress, and then there's Narva fortress. The Narva fortress was built by the Danish king or something like that. And based on the name, it was built, I think, Ivan III. Oh, wow. So I guess, and this is one of the oldest Europe, Russia. Yeah, I don't know. It's just because Russia is actually also Europe. But anyway, it's one of the oldest borders in this region. That's what I know for sure. So this has been a border, just like you saw, 2 fortresses and people crossing the border. It's been just like in the old days. It
definitely felt like a movie when I was crossing it. So definitely,
but I saw
a little bit creepy.
But I saw already the preparations that have been also in the media that the Estonian side has these, concrete triangle things to stop vehicles from entering, just like during, almost war times.
I was going to ask you about that because you mentioned that in your video and you show it and you call them dragon's teeth. Is that what you mean? What is that exactly?
I'm not sure. I just translated from the Finnish word because I think, but basically they're like just concrete tank stoppers, or not tank. In this case, just vehicle stoppers.
Vehicles in general, right?
Yeah,
right.
And they had also barbed wire, but not barbed wire. They had this NATO because Estonia is very it's a NATO country, so they have these NATO barbed wires, which they do not puncture. They slash. That's what I read in the news. I don't know why people are so, the media likes to take everything out of the situation, like as if this is some of the great, they don't puncture, they slice. Check it out. How interesting,
I believe it's razor wire as opposed to barbed wire. I could be wrong.
Hey, that's the one, by the way. Yeah,
so
they're the razor wire.
Instead of a sharp barb, like a metal thorn on a rose bush, it's an actual razor blade soldered onto it. So it is worse.
Yeah.
All right,
and there was a car also prepared to see probably if there's any immigrants refugees coming, because there were some that came across the boat, tried to come across, and Estonians basically physically stopped them from entering. I saw this video, but I didn't see anybody no refugees in the area, and I just and almost got arrested in Ivangorod because I shouldn't be filming, but that's for another story.
Oh wow!
That's a border city. You cannot, especially as a foreigner, you're not supposed to be out or especially filming, which I did both.
Well, be careful, man. Absolutely be careful. All right. Well, I have one more important question to ask you, but I want to be sure everyone knows that make sure you go over to his channel and see him there and see me on his channel. I've been there before, but I'm going to go there again. We're going to talk about a completely different subject. But I really appreciate Igor coming on and telling us what's going on because, border closing, that is a big deal. And my last question for you, Igor, is your hat looks very Russian, looks very unique and European and good for winter. My question is, why purple?
Good. Wow, I wasn't expecting that. I actually have a small collection of these ushankas. But I don't know, actually. This is pretty unique color, so I picked it up. Plus, this sits on my head really nicely. And trust me, this was a great choice to take to Ivangorod. It's really warm, but I don't know. It just you can, if you're a tourist in Russia. Let's say land it on a happy note. If you're a tourist in Russia, the most tourist thing you can do is buy the Soviet ushanka. and they have all sorts of rainbow colors or whatever you want, pink and everything. And this is possibly more traditional even compared to those. And this is not a tourist hat. This is like a proper hat.
Well, I learned something new. I didn't know it was called a gush. You said gushanka. Ushanka.
Ushanka, yeah.
Because gushanka is the goo you put on your pancakes.
All right. No. Ushanka.
Ushanka. Okay.
Yes, Ushanka. Your wife knows.
Okay. Well, you used to be a pop star, right? So purple is a good color for you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for having me. And of course, if you're watching this, subscribe to Expat American. Big fan. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
You got it, man. Thanks so much.
Let's hope we'll see you in Moscow like we planned soon.
Yeah. Definitely.